feels like a morning here. All right, 8 o'clock, let's call the special budget meeting of the Finance and Admin Committee to order. We'll call
Steve Brunner. Ron Stanko.
Here.
Bill Jenks.
here.
Dave Reeser.
Here.
And Keith Durr will be absent.
Is there any public comment at this time?
Well, since last time you asked me nicely, I will say something that this morning. I've been following these meetings for a while, and honestly, there's no other way I could say other than you've been burning through cash all these years. And I know you have narratives, you have excuses, you have everything on the face of the earth. Now we're going into $5 million debt. And last meeting, I watched you go through every bench, $600 bench in the park, which was good or not good. Spent 2 hours on that subject. And but we're not talking about the millions we're spending on for-profit services. I've always spoken about this. Municipalities don't do this. Other people, we've spent millions on McCarthy, on hundreds of thousands on craft codes, just to inspect our weeds. Nobody does this. And I have not seen any one of you, and irrespective of the party you are, speaking for creating good paying jobs here in the Borough Hall. We had Anderson Deutschman, we could have hired her, but we chose to pay for profit to McCarthy. We can simply have an engineer on staff. You say, oh yeah, but a lot of the fees are passed through to the residents. Yeah, number one, they're for-profit fees, and number two, if we had an engineer on staff, they would be income for the borough. So year after year, million after million, and now we're in debt. And I know you have some form of excuse and narrative, but I don't see this, and I don't see, and you know, the elephant in the room, the $5 million to Mascaro without any bids. Nobody speaks about that. How come every other borough or municipality around are paying a lot less than we do? Sinking Spring pays $250 a year. We pay $555 for trash. We have gold for trash? Why do we have to pay that much? So I would love to see something done better and more honest discussions on how much for-profit services we want to continue to pay and make the residents get into debt, or even not raise taxes, or probably you don't want to raise taxes, that's why you went into debt. I don't know. Question is, when is this going to stop? Thank you.
Welcome. Any other public comments? Hearing none. Phyllis, start the show.
With information available through yesterday, the year-end projection in draft 2 is now at a deficit of $3.2 million, very similar to results that we had for draft 1 and when we projected at the end of September. With that deficit, we would end the year with a fund balance of $8.2 million. When the debt is settled in December, the estimated settlement date being December 18th, that will infuse the fund balance with additional $1.1 million, leaving us an ending fund balance of $9.3 million, $705,000 better than where we were comfortable with when we budgeted at this time last year.
So it's $705,000 with funny money of $1.15 million.
It would be,
But if you factor in this street sweeper and the unbudgeted fire truck, we would have been ahead of the game.
Without the fire truck and the street sweeper, yes.
To the tune of, the fire truck was what, $1,050,000? $1,030,000. The street sweeper was another.
I have that information on our,
It's right
Oh,
on
yeah,
that
sorry,
sheet,
it's right
yeah,
there, I'm sorry.
184.
So we're talking about $1.4 million of unbudgeted numbers. So our budget last year, outstanding of the unforeseen fire truck street sweeper, would have been $700,000. Is that what we're saying also?
now we're mixing topics there,
Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Bottom line is, with the $1.158 million, we're gonna be $700,000 better than the budget.
Correct,
If we didn't take the 1.158, the street sweeper and the fire truck are the two items that would have made it even better.
correct.
Go ahead.
At this time, for draft 2, with all the information available, we now are projecting a deficit of $1,370,000. If both those circumstances come to fruition, we would end the year of 2025 with an overall fund balance of $8 million. $1,595,000 would be reserved, and we would have an unreserved fund balance of $6,408,000. That would be $42,000 less than what we had projected when we budgeted for the 24 year.
How much less?
$42,000.
Go.
Being $5 million minus the 2.1
Correct.
looks good, it's not,
Correct.
okay. Just, yeah.
The anticipated reserves at the end of 25, we would have built the MS4 reserve to $600,000. We would continue to carry reserves for future bike route maintenance of $57,000. There's a traffic study that we receive funds for that is unbudgeted for 25. That leaves $92,000. The remainder of the West Lawn Interceptor project for $310,000. And the additional funds available from the debt for future facility improvements of $536,000 for a total of $1,595,000. All other items will be satisfied with projects during 2025.
Phyllis, on draft 1, that admin police facility line read 548, not 536.
There's additional change orders anticipated because of the sinkhole that was discovered.
Okay.
And additional, I added $10,000 to the anticipated construction costs for the garage,
Okay.
because there are pending change orders.
Well, does the 536 include contractual obligation to somebody to make renovations to this building?
We are not under contract to make any renovations.
I thought,
Nolan, we've kicked the can and we can get out of the window project.
what do we have?
Chris and I have discussed that, it's part of the AIA contract, canceling the contract with Dolan.
Dolan has been very cooperative. I mean, I think at some point we're gonna need to give some work to Dolan, but we have, he's been very cooperative about just moving that down the road.
Okay.
Assumptions that change for draft number 2. We received from the county, it's just dated on Friday, a reduced abstract that reduces the value of the property in the borough by over $4 million. I did increase water, sewer, and refuse rates as discussed at the previous meeting. And we initially thought that the JMA would not be increasing their treatment rate. And we found out yesterday that that would be increasing 5.5%. The equipment was reduced, as was infrastructure, as we discussed at the previous meeting. When we look at the effect of the changes that were put through for the water rates, I gave an example of what an average quarterly bill would look at 1,500 cubic feet. Currently, that bill would cost a household $302. With the proposed 2025 rates, that same household for 1,500 cubic feet would pay $324, an increase of $21 or 7%.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
If the sewer rates are increasing 5%, but the sewer treatment charges are increasing more than that,
Well, the 5% is what I was instructed to change
Right.
based on the last meeting. Literally yesterday, I found out from the JMA that they were increasing their rate 5.56%.
so should we be increasing the sewer rates 6% instead of 5%?
It's certainly open for discussion.
If we're getting a 5.56% increase,
Yeah, I don't think we have much of a choice.
we need to pass that on.
Do we want to make that change now, or do we want to
Yes.
look at all things? All
Well, I don't think we have a choice, we're gonna pass it through, so.
to change the 5% to
Change
5.56.
it, I would just change it to 6.
I changed it to 5.56.
Okay.
Anybody have a problem with that? Do we need to?
Nope.
Thank you.
This example also shows a 15% water increase. I've heard, but I've not seen that rate coming from the water authority will be a different number.
Yeah, we told you 19%. The only,
We haven't actually received
I haven't
anything.
received any notification of
you
that.
didn't get a letter?
No,
Never sent that letter out.
no.
I apologize. My understanding was it went out last week. I'll take care of that. But anyway, 19%, the only thing that we're waiting for is chemical bids. We put in 3%. They come up higher than 3%. We don't anticipate that, but who knows? But right now it's 19%. Biggest part of that, about 15%, is capital, long-term capital, and our anticipated $30 million upgrade to the plant. So we're trying to build up a little savings account to temper the future rates as we increase our new debt, which should probably be within the next year if everything works right. We're waiting for the final engineering things out, but right now it's 19%.
As the authority, are you planning on borrowing money to?
We'll have to, oh my gosh. The plan is, rough numbers, it will go to Penvest for 20 million, and we think we get 2% or less than 2% loan, so it'll be a loan, $20 million loan. On the PFAS part of it, we think we can get a grant. That's gonna be 8 million, give or take. But that should be a grant. So we're talking about roughly $20 million of debt. And we'll get that through Penvest.
So we're gonna $20 million worth of debt at 2-ish%, and we're gonna raise rates 19 to buffer future increases.
Well, we're trying to do.
I'm questioning it because I have to for the citizens.
Well,
Trust
sure,
me, I think I
sure.
bang that as much as you could, but.
Sure. We're trying to put it, call it a savings account, if you will. We're trying to put 300,000 a year in, that when we start incurring this new debt, we can keep the rates down by taking some of the money out of that savings account to add into our budget. That's our play. Instead of doing nothing, and then it's gonna, yes, it's going up 19 now, but if you don't do anything, the next jump might be 35% or whatever the number will be. So we're trying to temper it, is what we're trying to do. There's no way getting around a $20 million debt, that's a lot of money for us. 50-year-old plant, and with the PFAS thing, it's just.
How much is the PFAS then?
We're estimating, 8 million, that's an estimate.
So we're dealing with $28,000.
Yes, I would say so. That estimate, that we have not seen the final engineering numbers yet, but those are the numbers I hear.
We assume that we can set up any reserve accounts to save money in the previous years for it.
Well, we have reserve account, but that's what we're trying to do with that 300,000 a year, throwing into a reserve to offset the future debt.
It's a shame, 19% is an astronomical number.
It is,
And
I don't like it.
we don't have much of a choice but to pass that through because it only affects 2/3 of our residents. If that number's correct, I apologize, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, the rate wouldn't go up 19%. Rate 19% is only on the purchased water, which is roughly half the cost of the water rates. So I don't know what else went up.
I haven't seen the letters, I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, on your worksheet, you have a purchased water category. Then you have all the other things, reader, labor, engineering, whatever. But the water is actually, I don't know, what, 40% of the cost. So roughly 45% is 19% increase, but the other 55, I don't know what that went up. So it's, the water rate itself charged to people of the borough is not 19%. 19% is only part of the equation. Do I make sense?
So if my water bill was $200, it's now gonna be 19% more than $200.
No.
It's gonna be 10% of 18, of 200.
Well, I don't know what the other things went up in there's a worksheet that they use for water.
Mhm.
And one of the items, one of the line items is purchased water. Then you have all these other items that go into it. From the borough, to maintain the distribution system, the borough does that, not the water authority. I don't know what those things went up. Let's say it's half and half.
There's not a percent applied to the line, each line is evaluated based on its need.
Right, I understand that, but I'm saying you can't say that the water rate charged to the borough will be 19%. The 19% is only one item on this worksheet,
Understood?
okay?
Okay, so when can you give us,
Beg your pardon?
when can you give us the number? When can we get the number?
But that's the number. What do you mean, when can we get it?
She's talking about the letter that we didn't get, that we should have, that explains everything.
I can't,
Yeah, you didn't get it this morning, I guess, right? Or-
I thought it went out last week. In fact, I have a copy of the damn thing right
Yeah,
here.
well, maybe you could give a copy to Michelle or Phyllis.
Well, no,
They can send it to
I'm
us.
gonna talk to Chip after
So-
the meeting.
I will adjust the projected cost for 25 by 19%.
Yes.
The rate charged to the to residents in the commercial entities for consumption is currently at 15%. Am I changing that amount?
Well, why would the rate to the borough?
I'm asking the question if I'm supposed to change the rate.
No, I'm saying though, why would the rate go up only based on the purchased water when you have all these other expenses that contribute to the total cost?
I'm not making a decision, I'm just asking the question.
Well, currently, in the water rate that we're paying that all the residents are paying, include all those other costs, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's 19%.
No, 19. On the worksheet, assuming they said it was gonna be expenses of $3,200,000, of that, purchased water is $1,437,000. So less than half of the total expense that comprise that rate to the borough, residents, is purchased water. Everything else is,
Right, but at some point, it becomes an increase in the water rate.
oh, sure.
Okay, so what is the
What?
increase in the water rate?
19%.
Okay, then why
So-
are we doing?
I think what he's
No,
saying
no,
is,
no,
so
no,
the
no.
one, the 1.4 has to increase by 19%. So it's not gonna be a direct 19% pass-along cost. Once you increase 19% of that line item, you would see an increase of the total
Oh,
cost to
total,
pass
but
along.
not 19%.
So now you have to go line item by line item, figure out what else is related specifically to water, what the
Well,
percent
they-
increase is that, do a mean to figure out.
Well, no, he's just saying the one line item gets it. It all goes
Yeah,
on one
everything
line.
everything else
So
is
if
from
you
the
take,
borough.
so if you take the 1.4, add it, you know, times it by 1.19%, then you have the amount, you have the new rate, and you can figure out what
Exactly.
needs to be charged.
But you have to see what's water related, and if that went up, and if that went, there's certain items on there that have gone up 20%.
Well, I don't
Some
know.
items have gone up 15%.
There's a worksheet right here,
Yep,
okay? And I'm only talking about the water purchase, which is 19%. I'm assuming the other rates, whatever the rates were for the distribution system for the borough, that came from the borough. I have no idea.
But
what that
we've never passed along any of those other line increases on a water bill. The only thing we've ever passed along an additional cost is the rate from Western Berks being increased.
But that's
that
only
has
half
kept
the
you on
cost.
balance.
Yes.
But that's only half the cost of the distribution system and the water. That's where I have a problem. Right,
You
here's
can
your
look at the water
worksheet.
fund and see if it's
Right, here's the
big
worksheet.
and bang.
Okay, so you said you had a problem with that approach, what do you recommend?
Well, I have a worksheet, okay, with all these items that cost to purchase water and the distribution system. I come up with my costs, my projected costs, including purchased water. I add it up, and I say, okay, how much water am I gonna sell? I divide that into the cost, and that's my rate. So I'm saying the purchased water is only one component, roughly a little less than half of the total cost. Using that argument, why, if the water is 19%, why should the total rate go up 19%?
If you look at the water line, our proposed revenue is 2.8 million. Our proposed expenses are just shy of 2.8 million, and that's with the 15% increase calculated, which only leaves us with $23,000 in the end. So I think to go from 15 to 19 is out.
You think 19 is what?
Now, if they have in the past always passed the water rate directly on, and in the past our water fund has never grown excessively, then it seems to stand that if we raise it to 19%, then it's not gonna grow excessively, it's still gonna maintain itself.
I can argue, why should the borough cannot have $2.5 million surplus in their water fund?
They
year
don't,
after
they
year?
have.
They do. And the water fund is $2.5 million. Is that right?
No.
I'm saying, why should you have that big of a balance? But conceptually, I don't agree with raising the rate to the consumer by 19%. It's only a part. I guess I'm
Last
not
year we
clearly
lost money on water.
explaining myself. So I would argue it should not, the rate should not go up 19% to the borough people.
Phyllis, what have we done historically in the past? Are we charging the water rate across the board, increasing the actual consumption of water?
We have passed,
What's that?
we have passed along the increases received on water purchased in the rate.
What about the other expenses within that water rate?
That's always been covered by the fee charged. It's a proprietary fund. The intent is to cover the cost by the fee.
So
that
last
is
year when
charged.
the water rate went up 10%,
10%.
9%,
We
we charged
passed along the
9%
10%,
across the top.
yes.
So I don't see any reason why we almost have to charge 19%. How much do we have in the water fund? I'm sorry, I'm looking at it right now.
$2.5 million, thereabouts.
2025 is proposed to end at 22,950.
20.
Where do I see the 2.66? I see 2.481.
It's the
Well,
third
one
column.
line.
Third line down,
One line.
1231.24
Yeah.
before.
Look at the check.
Did I print the wrong one out?
Just
Maybe I
look
looked
at
at the wrong one.
If you can look at the screen, Steve,
No.
bottom line of the water.
All right, well, if we passed on, let's just say of 19, let's just say it's 9% that we pass on to the residents, what's the dollar amount of the other 10%?
I'd have to run the numbers. If we were to pass along You said a 9% instead of,
I'm just using 9.5, let's say it was half.
we're
of the 19.
projecting a current year deficit. We're proposing for 25 with a 15% increase, we would have a $22,000 surplus. If we reduce the amount of the rate increase from 15 to some lower number, we would generate a deficit for next year as well.
And then that deficit would come out of the road to the water fund.
Yes, would decrease.
I maintain, why keep a $2.5 million water fund balance?
What have we historically done with that water fund balance? Is it just
Excuse me?
because we haven't used overhead transfers out of that or anything and stuff? have
We do have overhead
Oh, yeah,
transfers
that's part of it.
from the water fund, yes.
Right.
Now,
So-
does the water fund only benefit old Wyomissing residents as opposed
Yes.
to the American water, or Pennsylvania
American
American?
water.
Currently, yes.
Nothing to do. And
But
our
the
rates
sewer-
are
but the
still
sewer
part
less
does.
than half of
Sewer
what they
part
were.
does, yeah.
Less than half.
The fund balance avoids the situation that the authority is in now, that they need to, they have nothing to fall back on.
So we need to, I think we need to
That's
see
the
the
number.
number of, if we pass on the actual cost of the purchase of water, let's just say that's 9%, what effect will that have on the end of the year budget, end of the year fund balance for the water fund?
For the current year, none. For next year, we will have a deficit. With a 15% increase, we're
Yeah,
estimating a
but what is the
surplus.
amount of deficit? If we have $2.6 million in the fund now, is it gonna go to 2.5 million, is it gonna go to 2.0 million?
It would be above 2 million, I'll have to run the numbers for you.
Yeah.
So you don't pass on this year, and expecting on that next year.
Well, we don't.
As long
We're saying roughly, let's say, or increase water rates 10%
instead of 19.
instead of 19. Because the 19
Can
is
you
only half.
do that adjustment, Phyllis?
Water rates, instead of 15%, reduce it to 10%.
Sure. And then what's that effect on the water fund balance in 2025?
Still gonna be over 2
Moving on,
million.
I'm sorry I asked the question, I guess. Where were we? I'm sorry, I lost track of where we were now.
We talked about the change to a residential water bill. With those rate changes, I'll make those adjustments.
Okay.
On real estate taxes, we received an assessment after all the annual appeals. The value of property decreased by $4,538,000, resulting in a loss of tax revenue of $24,000. When that reduced assessment is applied to the current rate and a collection rate of 98%, the revenue that is projected for 25 is level with what we're collecting for the current year at $5,020,000 for the general fund and $512,000 for the road fund. The annual assessments in the larger part of the borough in District 96, 49 properties were reduced. In the hills, 8 properties were reduced, for a total of 57 properties received reductions. I also found out just yesterday that there was a court stipulation for Home Depot that will further decrease the assessed value by $882,000. There's a current year refund due to them, and that will reduce the value of property to tax for next year. If a tax increase were to be considered based on the current assessed value, each tenth of a mil would generate approximately $100,000 in revenue. A full mil would give us an additional $1 million in revenue.
What did we do last year? 0.25 road fund?
Road fund, I think it was.
Last year, we raised the general fund by 0.4, which brought it up to 4.9, and we instituted the road tax fund again, enacted the road tax fund.
Which was at 0.25.
That was at 0.5.
0.5.
So the total tax rate is now 5.4.
Okay. See, we can come back to that. I'm sure we're gonna do something there.
On the capital request list, I've shaded in pink those items that the borough is currently committed to. I've shaded in green those items that have changed since draft one. The borough is committed to the last phase of the records library system. Remaining in the draft two are the police vehicles, as well as the major equipment. Remaining in the fire budget is the fitness area and the conference room. The equipment to go into the fitness area, as well as some furniture items, the armoires, the chairs, and the mattresses, as well as under major equipment, the portable radios. I did add to the major equipment list a vehicle for the deputy fire chief after learning that there is an offsetting grant for that. There's a local share grant and that will offset the entire cost of that, if I'm not mistaken.
Not the $500,000 we just found out about last week. This
This
was,
is something different.
yeah, this was awarded in 23 from that local category 4.
Okay, so I've added the cost of the vehicle and I've added an equal amount of revenue, so there's no effect to the bottom line. The borough is committed to the remainder of the MTF program.
I'm sorry, Phil. On the fitness equipment, the fitness area, I've talked to Ethan. We're gonna see, there has been some changes in the Relief Association's rules and regs. I'm not familiar with, what I read is they had no limit as to how much we can use relief monies towards equipment, but I'm gonna, whatever we can get out of relief for that, for exercise equipment, we're gonna do. So I don't know if you wanna leave it in there and then we just say, hey, relief's able to pay for it, and then we just remove it. But I'm not gonna know that till December.
Between all this, then we're looking at $100,000.
Right.
Over 100.
We're gonna
Now,
see how much of that.
I understand the $10,000 for the mattresses.
We,
and stuff.
Relief Association has the money.
And if we're out that $100,000.
We're gonna get some of it.
Okay, Chip.
We'll be able to use some of it. The question is how much we can use of it. I don't know how you wanna think of that.
Well, I'm at a meeting now and Michelle says she never got it. When did you mail it?
So what are we doing in the fitness area?
Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, so the fitness area would be down in the current basement. It's creating a walled-off area so that the on-duty staff can maintain their functional fitness while on duty in an environment where they're not exposed to the dust and the vehicle exhaust from where the other apparatus
Is there a
empty.
fitness area now, Ethan?
There is, it's in the garage without any kind of walling. We have the police unit and the 47 Mac down there as well.
Right next to the
Yes.
I'll move some of the equipment upstairs,
We have.
which is that conference room.
Yeah, so our training room, we had adjusted earlier this summer to bring some of the fitness equipment upstairs because it was extremely humid down in the basement to work out, which was counterproductive to the health and safety of my staff. So the proposal was working with a local architect firm to design that space appropriately to be used as a fitness area. And then a small conference room area down there as well for other meetings if they had to happen.
In the space that's there, refitting it, or are you adding space?
So refitting within the footprint of the firehouse,
Down in the basement?
down in the
going
basement to make it
So you're getting
more.
rid of that museum area?
No, this would
You're
be,
getting rid of the parking space then?
no, this would be inside the four walls of the building. In the garage portion where the antique and the police services unit are parked right now, there is some open space that could be converted into this fitness area and a small conference room.
the old regulations call for what percentage?
So the Relief Association used to be only able to spend up to $2,500 every other year on fitness equipment.
Which is nothing.
Right.
I think that's
But-
changed.
But if you built that space out and used the fitness equipment you have for another year,
I can do that.
What about the conference room? Is that something that can be pushed off?
I believe so. If we end up going through with creating that built fitness area downstairs, that would open up the training room again, to have meetings or training, what have you, for any entity here in the borough.
Can the police use the fitness area if they wanted to?
They can, yes. All the police officers, their key fobs are now entered into our system at the firehouse and have access.
is the basement area that it's in right now climate controlled?
It is not.
So is that 50 grand include helping with the climate control?
So it does to a degree. The downfall to what's projected was that our architect did not follow through with getting a cost per square foot estimate. In research looking at the cost per square foot for commercial renovation spaces, it ranges from $30 per square foot up to $300, depending on what you're doing. I averaged it out at 150 and came up with a total line item of about 115,000 to fit out that area properly.
Just the fitness area?
Well, to create the fitness area and the conference room,
And the conference
fully
room.
finished, the floor,
Furniture?
the ceilings, not including the furniture.
Do
No.
complete HVAC down there, it's not gonna be a cheap proposition.
The HVAC were going to be mini split units
Yeah.
piped in through the wall.
So, I know I'm gonna open a hornet's nest here, I'm gonna do it anyway. Talk to me about this museum and the usefulness of it. How many visitors a year do we get to the museum?
I don't have that number.
On an annual, it would range, anywhere from 20 to 50. It depends on who shows up at the firehouse. Usually on open house night, we'll get almost everybody who attends to go down through it. One of the downfalls with the museum is that a lot of the current staff don't know the history that is contained in there.
That space is also not climate controlled, is it?
That space is not fully climate controlled. It has a heater in there. It's also where all of our fire protection systems come into the building. So the sprinkler system's in there, the water is in there.
The museum was developed as a sense of pride on how the fire company was started in 1909. And how it has progressed throughout the years. It was named then after Theodore Boucher, who was fire company president for a number of years. And again, it's a source of pride to the volunteer fire service, the ones fire company.
And it's not adding any additional cost.
No, but I'm saying you could add space.
It'll add space, but, I think it's a
On one
nice-
hand, I will say it's valuable property. On the other hand, I'm gonna say we don't touch it. There has to be a,
Yeah, I think with out of respect for what they have passed, my goodness gracious, why not have a little?
There is a lot of really interesting history
Oh, absolutely,
in that museum room.
absolutely.
I wish more people would come and view it.
I agree with you, Chief, I agree. I think we don't touch it.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to find some cut somewhere in there, so we'll keep moving
Am I
on.
leaving the
So
fitness
wait.
equipment in for now?
I would do the fitness area and not the conference room or the fitness equipment. So you build out the fitness area, you have it, you use this year's fitness equipment. And we'll work on more fitness equipment next year, or what we can
And then we'll
get
see
from
what-
fire relief, or what we can get from maybe hand-me-downs to the
Good.
gym.
Remove the equipment in the conference room, is that the consensus?
Yeah, we'll see what we can get from relief this year. Or for 2025.
Good news is $47,000. Bad news is that's $47,000. Okay, moving on.
Under storm sewer projects, the borough is committed to complete the Cambridge culvert, as well as continuing to contribute for the MS4 commitment to the Wyomissing Coalition. Remaining is the televising and the repair of the storm sewer system at $75,000. Under street excuse me?
I don't think we should be cutting televising and repairing, we gotta know what we're
No,
doing.
absolutely not.
Okay, just wanna make sure we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
Under street reconstruction, it was changed from from 6 streets to 5 streets by eliminating the work on Cambridge. The 50/50 sidewalk program for next year is still included, as well as miscellaneous paving and the pillars. I do have a question related to the street work. Chris, maybe you can help with this. We are committed to complete at least 500,000 based on the road tax that will be collected. If we eliminate Cambridge, the actual street reconstruction drops to below that number at 481.
Doesn't miscellaneous paving
That's my question.
yeah, I mean, that's road work.
I mean, there's miscellaneous paving, the sidewalk program.
Well, what is miscellaneous paving?
20 grand, which puts you at
But what's the actual
What
work?
is it?
It's, Jim, can you
It's
help with that?
work that Public Works does in-house that we don't bid out as part of the annual road program, small patches, potholes. and
No,
things
it's
like
part of
that.
the street contract, was my understanding. But I don't know specific areas.
The road tax is not as restrictive as the liquid fuels funds that we receive from the state. You have more discretion with the road tax revenue.
Okay, so we are meeting our obligation.
I'm satisfied that if it's on a street, or even if it's done by our road crew, it would be an appropriate expenditure of the road tax revenue.
Okay, thank you.
But you do have to watch for change orders, because they could take us below that number.
Well, if we drop below, then what you do is you carry it over to a future year to use for road projects in 2026.
Right, I'll be watchful of that.
There's no necessity that you spend every dollar that you receive from the road tax revenue. You just have to spend it at some point.
Okay,
On road.
understood.
Good.
All right, under major equipment, we are committed to the purchase of the bucket truck as it was ordered in 2023. Also remaining in the list for draft 2 are the fuel tanks, the above ground at the garage, the valve turner that's attached to truck 23, and the flusher pump that's attached to the flusher truck. Under recreation, remaining in the budget is the ADA improvements at the Berkshire Heights Playground. There is revenue included in the budget to partially offset those costs. Also remaining is the pool cover and the improvements to the playgrounds as specified in the recent inspection. Removed from the list were the pool lights, the Stonehouse kitchen, the Stonehouse PA system, the tennis courts, and the pickleball striping.
I thought the tennis courts we were supposed to figure out what.
I did, I looked.
Is
The
it
most
all
recent
us?
agreement is from 2018, and yes, it is all of us.
It's something we can push off till next year.
The agreement does not specify any frequency with which we have to restripe routine.
Because we're responsible for maintenance.
Yes.
Whenever we do.
I'd like to ask a question about the pool. From the photographs that we saw in the in movement, sort of this, they were doing this stuff now. That area of the pool for the snack bar looks like it's World War III hit it. It looks like it's a disaster. So if we take money out because we're just going to take it out. What are we gonna do next year if somebody comes and wants to buy a hot shape, right, Randy?
Where exactly are you talking about?
In the pool, the snack bar.
Yeah.
We're getting new picnic tables there, that's what.
No, I'm talking about stuff inside.
You talk about the concession stand
Yeah,
itself?
yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing, that equipment still works and it's still,
Well, there are pictures somewhere, maybe it was somewhere abroad, but it looked like it was the inside of the snack bar area, it looked like it was.
That was the Stonehouse Kitchen.
Yeah, that's the Stonehouse.
That was the
Kitchen.
Stonehouse Kitchen.
Those pictures.
It's been around.
that's 1780.
Yeah, 1780.
I remember
That was
serving hot
before
chocolate
my
down
time.
there as a kid.
I remember, well,
All right, so the
absolutely.
$30,000 in improvements are stuff we have to do, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the cover on now?
The cover is currently still in for draft 2.
Is the cover
Oh,
on
the
the
cover
pool?
Yeah.
physically on the pool.
Yeah, check, let's cut the pool cover. It's on already, why did it take off?
Does that make sense, Randy?
No, it doesn't, but
Well,
none of this makes sense.
well, no, I'm just saying though, the pictures I saw was torn and whatever, and you're gonna get a lot of junk in there through the
I should
cover.
send you a picture of my pool cover. It looks worse, it's not as big, and
Yeah,
I don't get anything in my pool.
Well,
So I'm not saying we won't, but
I think your potential question then is, do you wanna not paint the pool next year?
That's what I was about to say, I think
It's-
it's
the
a,
opposite side of it is you're gonna make more work for Greg's guys to
for
clean it
next
up.
year. That's my
And
issue.
get it ready for the
Did we,
season.
when was the last time we painted it?
Mm,
It's
I
gonna-
don't know.
You're just
I
kicking
wanna
it
say 2 or 3
can down
or
the
so.
road there. It's gonna be a lot more of an issue next year on maintenance if you don't put the pool cover on.
I mean, the cover will
by the time
remain
we
in
get the pool
place.
cover, the leaves will be down already. That's my point.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
If we
you're
get
not
the
gonna,
cover to the
you're
cover
not gonna
now,
get it
the
this year.
leaves are gonna be gone anyway. And if we have a budget surplus somehow next year, maybe we can get a cover to put up, because it's gotta be up in September, October, November.
Oh,
Unless you're like me
should
and
be
leave the
up
pool open.
immediately after you close the pool. You can't wait till October.
That's my point to say, if it's already on, we might as well just keep what we have on and,
Right, but we're talking about expenditure for next year here.
correct, it's-
So
but that's not gonna help the painting of the pool in the spring.
That's correct. That's correct.
Well, I guess we could ask Greg's guys if there's a way we can Band-Aid it and put tarps down or anything where the bad
Oh,
holes
right.
are.
There is, 3M does, is that a mesh cover?
Mhm.
Yes.
It's the same one you and I have.
Okay, 3M makes a product for mesh covered pools for patching, and then I bought a patch kit on Amazon, so maybe you want to look
Okay.
and see what large rolls that comes in, or maybe Apollo or Leslie's can offer a Band-Aid situation.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so it's out for now.
Okay, pool cover removed. The trench steps remains in the budget. The picnic tables and the benches have been pared down for specific locations. The sun shades at the snack bar have been removed, but the umbrellas, the guards remain.
Yes.
The keypad locks remain, as well as the gaga pit and the wiffle ball equipment. The diving board has been removed.
Okay.
At the park barn, 50,000 remains for the work following the park study. The snow guards and gutters at the park barn have been removed. The panel needed to supply the generator remains. In the park equipment, the installation of the fuel tanks has been removed. The truck-mounted weed sprayer remains, and the power hand tool budget has been cut in half.
What's included in that 50,000 study recommendations?
So that was the number Park and Shade Commission
Yeah,
came up
what's the
with.
recommendations?
Well, there's a lot of recommendations, but there's a few that we're focusing on, which are a lot of the invasives that are really overrunning and absolutely need to be controlled.
$50,000 for that?
No, that was just a number we came up with. So we have the invasive materials, we're looking for educational signage so that when people see, you know, a quarter acre of round sprayed stuff, we can have movable signage that says, hey, this was an invasive species, you know, blah, 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 as well as permanent educational signage. And we did want to put a deer fence in a small section of
Deer
the,
fence.
yes, so in a very small section to prevent the deer from getting into this small area And then over the course of a few years, we'll be able to see what our parklands look like versus what native species come back in this area. It's an educational tool. I was looking over numbers last night, and I think 30,000 instead of 50 could get us somewhere. I don't know if we'll even be approved to get the deer fencing. It sounds like we won't, but we do want to get some. The longer we wait on these invasives, they are exponentially.
How much do you think the invasive piece was of that budget of $50,000?
I mean, this is materials and labor. You know, it's going to increase their labor. It's going to increase materials.
This is only going to begin.
Yeah, this is only begin. This is a long-term project.
I understand, but I'm talking about for next year's budget. If we start with the invasive species stuff, skip the.
I mean, that would be a number for Jim Batt, but I'd say
Yeah, Jim and Greg's
15
original recommendation was 10.
was
10.
Right, but they're used to not spending anything on the park.
Right.
Look, this so-called
I would
gem
say
of Wyomissing has been
ask for
neglected
15
for
for
a very
that.
long time.
and then another
You wanna pay the price?
another 10 for signage and all of that. If we dropped it.
I agree with that.
Going on forever.
Do we know how much we can deal with? Can we get away with $15,000 to deal with just the invasive stuff?
Well, we can't, I would suggest we not deal with invasives without being able to put up educational signage about it.
We can put one sign up somewhere at the beginning of the park saying we're dealing with invasive space and we'll work on getting the rest of the signs up. Let's deal with the problem, that we can worry about the
Yeah.
education. We can do that through websites, we can do that through a lot of different things. I get it, I'm not saying it's a terrible idea, but let's deal with the problem, let's not deal with the consequences of the problem. So
What is the
can we get
number?
away with $15,000 for that?
If we're spraying for this invasive species, are we cordoning off that section of the park so people won't walk through it?
That's not,
or-
that's,
No.
I have no idea, but that's not,
How it's
That's
treated.
not your main
Germane
decision.
decision.
But if you're spraying it, you gotta protect it, which is more money.
so the question was, is $15,000 gonna be enough?
Right.
No, it's not.
Not, but
It is
if
not.
that's what we're getting, that's what we're
Okay,
getting.
is 20,000 enough?
20,000.
It's not enough.
Okay,
but
let's
it's
cut it
a
to
better
20, they
start.
try to get rid of the invasive projects, okay?
I'm sorry, what number am I?
20,000.
20,000 for the study.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm
recommendations.
just saying we
I'm
got
not
it.
saying we'll spend it all on it.
Right, that's fine. Actually, that would be great.
Yeah, that's my plan.
Okay,
See
let's
what
do
we
that.
can do.
We'll worry about the signage and all that stuff. I think we can accomplish that by putting signs on the billboards
Mhm.
saying borough parklands under construction. We're trying to get rid of the invasive, blah, 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 blah. Okay, moving on.
Any other changes under park equipment?
No. How about the Oley Street main replacement?
The first portion of the project has been eliminated. What remains is from Sixth Street to Park Road. The State Hill Road corridor under both water and sewer, McCarthy has provided us lower estimates. They're reflected there in green. The reimbursement to the Water Authority for the repairs at Route 12 was reduced to just 1 year at $10,000.
Okay. And I thought we discussed that Oley could be put off completely.
They put up part of it.
And I see that, but
I know Jim's not here to speak, but to not do any water project is not ideal.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I'd rather do that than a lot of the other stuff, but some of the stuff you have to do too. All right, we'll leave it in for now.
Okay. Under sewer repair, that budget was cut in half from 400,000 to 200,000. We are committed to pay Spring Township for the work that has been completed on the Wyomissing interceptor. That payment request is not expected till 2025. Starting in August, work on the West Lawn interceptor. We are likewise committed to that, and we have budgeted for approximately 40% of that, with some revenue anticipated to be received.
So we budgeted $640,000 for that project.
Of the 1.6 million cost,
Correct.
yes.
And we think there's gonna be some revenue of $320,000.
Grant, yes, and there is some money in reserve.
So that project is a 1 year and done project.
Well, the other 60% will fall into 2026.
No. scratch that, that's right, okay.
Okay. Added is work for beginning design and permitting for the Wyomissing pump station at $75,000. That came out of the infrastructure committee. Jim, can you add to that?
Yeah, so the 3 pump stations that we have are 24 years old, and the one by, what we've been, Berkshire Boulevard pump station, the one over by where service merchandise is down below.
Service
Where you
portion?
did it yourself.
I guess it's getting old. How about on the border? Fine on the border.
Wyomissing Farmers Market.
There you go, Wyomissing Farmers Market. That one is the one that's almost complete, we're waiting for some electric company work and some minor demolition to finish that up and paving in the spring. It was anticipated that part of all the redevelopment work, including the Reading, the Wynwood pump station along with Fourth and Oley were going to be upgraded to current standards, but plus to satisfy the increased sewer flows needed for all those projects. The Fourth and Oley project is continuing on as all the developers in that area, excluding the Inn at Reading, now called the Studios on Spring, is not going to be generating sewer flow for down the road. And then at that point, they would be responsible for 100% of upgrade costs to Wynwood and also Fourth and Oley. We are currently, in fact, we have a meeting today, Thursday at 1:30, to look at what the cost reduction is by excluding the Inn at Reading from the Fourth and Oley pump station. But the Wynwood pump station probably has a year or two life left in it. I mean, typically, pump stations are 20 to a max of 25 years. The pumps Public Works has upgraded, I believe, 3 years ago, but it's everything else is old and archaic. The pump controls and the electric powers, basically everything is on its, at the end of its life cycle. And with the Inn at Reading not proposing to do anything with this phase 2 for 5 years, it was discussed in infrastructure that, we don't believe that the station's gonna last 5 years. So that's why they recommended that we design and move forward with design and permitting and have that in hand. So then, the borough at least has everything in hand to say, okay, we wanna do this in 26 or 27, but we don't have that year lag to get the DEP permits to replace the station. Unfortunately, before it would have, basically the developers would have paid to upgrade our station, and bring everything to current standards.
Seems to me like we can't do anything with that.
No, you can't, I don't think.
I mean, we can't. At the end of the day, we gotta keep that stuff moving.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
So total capital requests, net of revenue that's anticipated would be $3 million. We removed $137,000 with today's discussions.
Can I ask, on the next page, there's the 2024 CO sidewalk, $25,000, which took out 611 of the streets to 636. What is that?
Change orders for the sidewalk burger.
This page, the 2024 CO sidewalk.
Carryover.
Oh, that's,
payment that won't be made during '24. I need the budget for '25.
Yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry. It could be change order, but in this case, it's carryover.
Okay, thank you.
What about staffing?
Just there was discussion last time, so I wanted to give you some information for comparison. The borough staff currently is at 71, 63 of which is full-time. Changes planned for next year is to make the part-time rec director, the full-time rec director and marketing director, to add 1 police officer starting mid-year at the academy, and to add the deputy fire chief starting at the end of the first quarter. There's some information that would bring the total borough staff to 73, including 66 full-time employees. The financial effect of adding those 3 employees for 25 would total $116,000. For the change from the part-time rec director to the full-time rec director and marketing director, there's a change of just $11,000 over what we're currently paying for part-time. Benefits, however, would be added. Adding a police officer at the academy mid-year would be approximately $37,000. with best, benefits estimated at 20,000, adding the deputy fire chief, with a full-time salary of 90,000. At the end of the first quarter would be approximately 67,000 plus 35,000 in benefits.
Okay. Do we need to hire a deputy fire chief?
Yes. Unequivocally, yes.
The academy hires for you, right, John?
Yes,
There's no doubt we need that.
yes.
I was saying no doubt we need that.
Yes, I talked about it yesterday in fire police. And
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But what it is we have a sergeant that's in the drop, and his retirement is coming in
No doubt we need.
2026, and I'm trying to get that taken care of because of the process, the length of time it takes to bring somebody on board. That way we're not down an officer once he leaves for an extended period of time.
And we have to discuss the rec director and marketing.
Does it also take into account the part-time position that we're removing? Is that in that calculation?
That's why it's only 11,000, yes.
Okay.
What's 11,000? It's really $43,000.
Yeah.
There is no salary budgeted next year for that part-time position.
Understood, I'm just making sure it was accounted there, because it looks like it's just going from full-time, or part-time to full-time, but we're also removing a secondary position, just making sure that.
That's in your change of part-time numbers.
But besides that, you gotta include the benefits on it, so, yeah.
So the salary's 11,000 more, right?
Correct,
And what's currently under 24's budget.
correct.
And the benefits are another, so we're talking about $43,500 for that position.
Correct.
How many hours a week? I know you're sitting here. How many hours a week you working?
Now, 32, 33.
What is the marketing director gonna do again?
Be in charge of marketing, press releases for all departments, not just rec.
Marketing of what?
Yeah, social media. Everything from, you know, the Stonehouse project would have been a great example when the public was kind of in a misinformed uproar about that. Getting information out there on social media channels, issuing actual press statements, content for the website other than the agenda and meeting portion, which Melissa is gonna retain, but they're in charge of all website content as well.
So it's more of a communications thing than a marketing thing.
Well, marketing communications are one and the same.
No, let's see.
I think communication
not
would have been
really.
a better word.
Yeah,
Really?
I would communications would have been.
I think
Marketing
communication,
is-
marketing to me is I'm out selling something.
Right.
And maybe you are, but to me, what the borough is selling.
No,
We're selling our
agree.
I think
Communications is a much better
communication
word.
would be a better term. At least that tells me more what he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the position and
Better
job title
Selling
were
and
approved by
promoting.
personnel
Better.
3
So
months ago, so.
promotions or communications, marketing
Yeah.
is selling.
Yeah,
That's-
because you're using the old school term for marketing. That's what it was back in the day. was
Well,
selling.
yeah, but, yeah.
It's
more,
not
you're
that.
telling me communications stuff.
Yeah.
I can buy that. Whether you need full time or not, I don't know. Right?
Well, it's just one of the positions, that's all.
It would make more sense if it's designated communications and marketing.
That would be my
Because it
suggestion.
would seem to the old people around the table, that if you're marketing something, you should be getting something for it. So if we're not getting anything for it, just be communications, that way when it goes out, you know what's happening, so we did it, now.
Yeah,
It's just a tough year to do it. All right. So where do we stand now, Phyllis?
Well, we were
Again,
at,
recap that again.
we were at a proposed deficit of 1,370,000, and the removals from the capital request list totaled 137,000. So that would take us down to a deficit of 1,223,000.
And what would that take our
Purchase
project?
change rate to about 20. What's that? We took off 20.
We took off 30.
Third.
You down to 20? Okay.
The removals included the removal of the fitness equipment at 22,000, removal of the conference room at 25,000, removal of the pool cover at 60,000, and the reduction of the park recommendation improvements from 50,000 to 20,000 for a reduction of 30,000.
John was skating on thin ice with 2 cars so far.
It was 50/50 sidewalk program for 100,000.
50/50 sidewalk problem I have a hard time getting rid of that with is A, we already told people we're doing it.
Yeah, the letters already went out to people for the spring
And
round.
B,
Yeah.
and B, I think that's good for the overall improvement of the borough. I think ultimately, the more people that fix their sidewalks, the better off this whole town is.
I agree, but we've taken off a lot of things that are for
You can
Plus, we
look at,
we started enforcing that more through practice.
I think we have to enforce.
we've been enforcing it, so
You have?
as part of that enforcement,
Look at the craft codes report, yeah.
Take some walks around the borough.
well,
Well,
That's
correct,
the-
so part of the enforcement is allowing them to participate in a special spring 50/50 program, but you could look at potentially cutting the second part in the fall that we normally do.
right, we may have to
But
do
between
one.
the spring and the fall, you're gonna send out 50, 100, 200, 300 more.
So what was the total, what did we ask today so far?
We asked 137,000.
Are we looking at the worksheets? 'Cause there's so much more. It's nuts.
Well, we also have stuff like that.
So as we're sitting right now, we're at a 1.223 deficit.
So what would that take our budget to at the end of the calendar year 25?
At the end of the 25 year, if we allow a deficit of 1,200,000, our overall fund balance would be 8,140,000. And we would be in a better position,
That's with the $5 million fund.
yes.
It's a 2.9.
So instead of a negative 42,000, we would be 95,000 better than where we had anticipated at this time last year.
I mean, at some point we have to talk about the light that we're sitting in.
Right.
What do you talking about?
This dump.
This building.
Well,
that's
I'm
not
looking,
even
I've
in the
looked through
budget.
the worksheets.
Correct, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars.
We're not doing anything with this building until we find out how much money we can
Yeah,
get.
we gotta get money.
Well,
We're not even approaching the subject.
I just hope we're not
That's-
spending no money on it, that's my point.
Well, we're
We
spending
spent
money on the building, yeah,
$1,000,000
we
the last
can.
couple of years.
But we have to.
Neither this year's budget nor next year's budget
Well, people
includes
have to work
anything
at
to
it.
address the condition of the water pipes.
Yeah,
Should have gotten rid of the place.
Well, we should have, would have, but we didn't.
Bill,
You know, by the.
we're actually, there's not significant, I mean, there's general maintenance for next year, there's not, like, we're not touching the water pipes, we're not doing,
Right.
I mean, staff's opinion is, why? There's no point.
Just for
Agreed.
information, do you know
I
the
agree.
church is selling the old Borough Hall? I'm not recommending we buy it, but.
I understand that's strictly a rumor.
Can we see
and
what-
That's not a rumor. That is not a rumor. They are getting, they are closing down that old borough building in January.
Hey, back on the tax rolls.
Now, they don't know what to do with it.
That's-
Now,
no,
I'll preface that by
True,
saying, they're afraid the roof's gonna fall in, so don't go in the building.
No,
It's not that
we're not
bad.
moving back to the old
Well,
borough.
I'm not suggesting anything, I'm just giving that
What's the
information.
process that we have to do? We have to do something for this November meeting? For the November council meeting?
You're
The,
gonna-
the next finance meeting, the regularly scheduled meeting is November 7th.
Right.
At that time, we should be recommending to council the advertisement of the budget. So that the December council can approve it.
And then adopt at the December
I
meeting.
need to go through this worksheet and look at these numbers. I will say, I went through this worksheet and these numbers, and I've marked all of the line items that have jumped with, despite salary, pension, all that. The line items that have jumped more than 20% from last year's budget to this year's budget, and they're significant.
Mhm.
Yes.
You know, and then to start, and I'm not saying we get rid of any of this, but to start, we lose $240,000 a year on the library, about $125 on the pool, and 50, which is an estimate because I plus on playground. That's hard to tell because of the spending and how it's made up. We also spend $100,000 on free stuff for people.
Free what?
Movies, egg hunt, concerts, rodeo,
Oh, I see.
Happy Hollow, Memorial Day Parade, 4th of July Parade.
I
What's
do-
that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We were having this conversation, like if you're talking about strictly what it takes to keep the lights on, there's capital improvement projects to the side, there is a lot of discretionary spending.
Right, and I wanna go through that discretionary spending.
I agree with what you're saying. We should look at the individual budget worksheets and how much salary, how much, I absolutely agree
Like
with that.
fire, I understand the fire situation because we are adding people, it's growing, but a lot of the fire numbers have gone from 14 to 26, you know, budgeted items. But we also overspent on a lot of things last year. So a lot of that isn't necessarily a big deal. You look at, consulting engineering fees, that went up 20%, which is fine. If you go,
You also have different, or new projects in there.
right, and I understand a lot of that, like the maintenance of streets labor jumped like 20%, alley labors jumped like 40%. Why are these labor numbers jumping so much? Now, I understand these are small numbers, but then you can go
Oh,
to.
you add them up.
But also, that labor number is determined by a contract that gets,
Right, but that contract didn't jump 40%.
no, but you also have people moving up based off of where they're at in the overall 10-year schedule from lowest rate to mid-year or midpoint.
Jen, the individual labor lines are lines that are dictated to
I'm not
us
talking about,
by
oh,
the
okay,
state,
good.
by the state. And we've made approximations as to where our efforts will be spent next year. I've done
So
an
you've just taken the labor of
I've
X number of people and broken it up
No,
between
we
streets,
can't do that in
alleys?
public works. Different than like the police budget where we know there's a certain number of officers and that's going on the salary line. Same thing with the firefighters, a certain number of people and a line. When you look at the public works staff, you have a staff of 21. I know what their rate is for next year, and I estimate what their overtime's gonna be next year based on past experience. So I've done that exercise, and I've come up with a total number. And then I've taken 30 different budget lines where those salaries are spread, and I've added those up. And the spread between what all the budget lines equal and what the salaries estimated are to be next year, there's only a difference about $15,000.
Right.
And that can vary based on if there's a water main break, if we have a blizzard, you know, any number of things. So I do make sure that the total wages that are anticipated are built into the budget,
Okay.
but I cannot accurately forecast how much is gonna be spent fixing signs versus
Shoveling snow.
shoveling or
Versus shoveling
plowing snow
So-
or.
So I think if we, thank you, Phyllis, I think if we, then, I think where all that excess money that's not keeping the lights on is in recs and park. And if you go to page 11, your swimming pool fees have not gone up. The playground fees have gone up 15%, but we're expecting an extra $26,000 from what we brought in this year, which seems excessive. Then you can go down to spending, salary pool staff has somehow dropped significantly, which doesn't make any sense.
It does make sense based on the management.
Okay, perfect. Playground staff has jumped 12%. The materials and supplies for the playground has jumped 50 or 40%.
Keep in mind though, half of that is allocated to public works, so to speak, for maintenance of those
That's
playgrounds.
not the bonus. Yeah, but in 2023, we spent 27.
But that 30,000 for your playground inspection report is in that line.
So you're saying The material supplies and playground, the inspection is in there?
Your improvements required by those inspections should be in that line. And there's
Where were they last year?
We didn't do any last year because the playgrounds weren't inspected.
Okay. I still think a 40% jump is insane.
I'm not seeing the 40%.
Yeah. I don't
If
see
you're
where
looking
the
on page
40%
11, you've got,
What account number are you looking at?
the expense, I'm in recreation,
What's the,
down in the bottom, material and supplies for playgrounds.
204?
Yeah,
452,
204.
204. You know, your materials and supplies for the pool have jumped significantly since 2023. Materials and supplies for the playground, what I was under the impression is the 30,000 last year was supposed to be split between both parties, and it wasn't. I don't understand why we're jumping to 42. You know, it's just $12,000. You take, you go to the next stage, the Memorial Day Parade, we've jumped our cost up 33%. The Fall Festival, 20%. The 4th of July Parade, we've jumped up, made a 50% increase on our input. We're
That's
spending
just the-
$100,000 on all of these things.
When you're looking at the 4th of July parade,
Yes.
that includes the cost for the mummers. And there-
That was paid by private monies.
That was paid for by private
that
monies.
revenue is on a different
But
line.
it, yeah, you're not.
Well, what I'm saying is our budget this year was 30,000, and now next year we're allocating 45,000. That's a 50% increase. Why have we decided now we should be spending $45,000 every year on a 2-hour parade? You know, our Memorial Day parade went from 9,000 to 12,000.
Did the 4th of July in '24 have the budget for the mummers in it?
It was not budgeted.
Right, so
Nor
it was
was it-
unbudgeted and funded outside of the budget.
The
And we
revenue,
still went over budget by 50%.
Well, right, because we put the mummers in because we paid for them, and then we took it back out because we had additional revenue to come with the
the
mummers.
revenue is on the revenue line,
Yes.
as
Right.
required by the state.
So
And
the,
so
so
is
the
the
parade
barrel.
didn't cost more.
Okay.
Actually, we collected more money than it cost.
How are we collecting money on 4th of July?
We had private
Fireworks.
donations for the,
Donations.
we had private donations for the mummers. That
And the
exceeded-
Right, but that exceeded the entire cost of the parade.
No.
Right, yeah,
Cost
right.
of mummers.
All I'm saying is we budgeted 30,000. What you're saying is we spent a little under 30,000. Why are we budgeting 45,000 this year?
Well, if we have the mummers again, it'll all be raised by private funds, so there's probably a $15,000 increase to revenue at some point.
There is.
Is
one
that
revenue
in
line.
this year's revenue?
It's on, under
Is
the
it under
miscellaneous revenue,
Recreation miscellaneous?
yes.
Well, recreation miscellaneous brought in this year 21.4, so you're expecting it to bring in 25, so that is just covering the mummers.
No, there's other
Look,
donations.
we can cut the mummers if you want to cut the mummers.
I don't wanna cut the mummers,
But
I
it's
wanna
got
make
to
sure
go
the
to
borough
borough.
is,
I'm sorry, the mummers.
yeah, if it's being paid by somebody else, I don't care, but I wanna make sure the borough's, I mean, 45,000
Well,
or
let's not
something.
include the cost of the mummers in the budget, take it out, and if we raise it, we raise it, if we don't, we don't.
Movies in the park have gone up 25%,
But
programs and
hasn't, the
publications
movies in
have
the
gone
park,
up
are they not paid for
33%.
by donations?
Not all of them, no.
No, our donations
Then maybe we only do the ones that we can get someone to be a sponsor for.
That's why I think that next year, there'll be more opportunity to go out and solicit donations.
But it's, that,
The
that,
selling part.
I get it, but that's just moving money around, you're still
Yeah.
getting the same, right?
Yeah, but you're still only projecting $25,000 of miscellaneous revenue, which would be your donations. And we're spending $100,000 on free programming. And you're saying the mummers plus 15,000. That's so none of that, almost none of that's being allocated to other sources. Materials and supplies have gone up 45%. The Hewitt House maintenance has gone up 66%.
If we're gonna try to Mickey Mouse this whole operation, it makes no sense. I mean, this community lives on all those things up there. And if it's 10,000 versus 7,000, if we want Randy to go through every item, then write it all down, figure it out and see where it is. But we can't close the pool, we can't not have Happy Hollow.
We can charge a little bit more money.
No, you can't.
We haven't even talked about revenue
Right.
yet, just to be.
Yeah.
You could charge them more money. People, your taxes are going up, if you haven't noticed, and that's gonna be the problem. People are paying all this money to live here, and part of living here is a library, is a fire company, a police department. I mean, let's drop 2 police officers, and let's just stay in Wyomissing. We don't need 2 more police officers, 2 more police cars, another fire truck. I mean, we need the stuff, but we also need to be able to do stuff for the people that live here. And that's why they live here, because they have a playground, and we don't need to charge them another $10 just because we can't figure out where we're gonna get it.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying we've been doing it at X amount for the last couple of years. Why are we suddenly jumping that price?
Well, then I guess
that
we
we're
should have
spending?
another longer meeting with all those things itemized, because
Did the
They're all-
rec board give us the budget yet? I forget.
It's coming, you meaning your proposed fee schedule increases? It'll be part of your November council packet.
And what did you propose for fee increases?
The tennis program and the playground program both have increases,
But not the pool,
but the pool did not.
which is running a couple $100,000 deficit.
Okay.
I don't understand when everybody's saying that it's such a huge deficit. I showed $140,000 in revenue, and then expenses were $170,000, so it's $30,000 is what I'm looking at. Not counting the major, the
Were
200,000.
you including the pay?
Yeah. 52, 5, 55, and 75.
Yeah, the
Versus
pool salaries are
140.
85, maintenance is 75, mowing is 8,000, materials and supplies is 90,000, utilities is 6,000. It's
Well, I was looking at expenses for
264,000.
this year.
Well, next year, we're looking at a $124,000 deficit. And I'm looking at.
Counting.
Yeah, I'm
Counting.
using the budget items for next year. Playground staff is 90,000, general maintenance is 45,000, which I know isn't all playground. Mowing is 24,000, materials and supplies are 42, utilities is 65. I put the estimate of playground at 123, which is 30,000 over just your $90,000 in employees. You brought in 55, or, you brought in 55, so you're, $68,000 over budget, or if you actually are able to jump another $21,000 in profit, then you're down you're still down $47,000. Like, I'm not saying we get rid of any of this, but we have to be fiscally responsible for what we're spending. We don't need more than 3 movie nights, I think we had 6 this year. We don't need $12,000 in bands, I think we can do that less or more affordably or with more donations.
Are we paying for all this entertainment, Randy?
Yes.
Some we do and some we don't. Some we get sponsors from.
Okay, so we should look at that, because if we have 12 entertainment venues, as much as I'm crazy about the signs that we don't need, but if we have these things and people go to it, then how much does it cost? $5,000? If people are entertained with 20 of these things for $5,000, what are we talking about? We're spending more money than what to do it in 2 seconds, $5,000.
I do. I'm trying to get this meeting moving. I tend to think we have to increase the pool fees a little bit.
Absolutely.
I mean, I agree that it's a necessity, it's an evil, it's not an evil, it's actually a necessity, it's not, in my opinion, it's not an evil necessity, but I do think we have to trade rate. I mean, people have to understand that everything is going up with inflationary costs, so I would raise it at least to 7-8% that inflation is. Somewhere in that range. I know the CPI is lower here than that, but you get my point. Cost of chemicals, everything is going up.
Well, that's it right there, because that's our issue with Western Burke's. Water is the cost of chemicals, and it's the same thing
No,
for.
it's
Oh, gee,
Let's not, we're over that one.
But it's the same thing with the
So
pool.
Randy, I would, maybe you have to talk to your rec board again and.
There's not time, Steve, because the fee schedule goes to council at the November meeting, so that's
then
what I
maybe
was
you
just
have to
saying.
have a special council meeting to change some stuff.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, ultimately, the fee schedule is council's boat. So, I mean, the other option
Okay,
is
not-
if,
not-
Not
I'm
sure,
with that.
not sure.
yeah, so, I mean, otherwise, we just input those changes into the fee schedule,
But
Phyllis
how
will
much, so the
budget.
total pool fees are $140,000 budget, we budgeted the same number. So if we add 10%, it'd be $14,000, I'm not saying we add 10%, but maybe we add 8%. There's a direct offset of cost of the pool, I agree. There's never gonna be, the pool's never gonna pay for itself. It's never,
No,
has
it's
no
not.
prayer doing it, neither do the
No.
playgrounds.
But the pool should cost more, and we should be looking at our jump in prices for all of the free program.
Well, in the top line, you've got paying more than cover costs. You wanted a week, you paid for it, sorry.
Well, I
Well,
agree
the-
with that. If we're gonna increase if we're gonna increase payroll, if playground's gonna be increased by week, then we should,
We did.
It has to be,
Right.
it has to be covered.
but he just said he did, so. We'll see. Are the revenues included that they gave you in here?
Whatever the rec committee gave me for revenue is what was used.
Okay, so the record, so I'm looking at the pool fees.
So-
Playground fees, they go up, okay, right. So we just gotta change the pool fees by a little bit.
Well, that's an estimated revenue for next year, 76,000.
I understand that, everything's an estimated cost too.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a,
So what freebies are you proposing we
40%.
cut or take out?
I don't know, I'm proposing we don't jump the prices on anything. I don't think we need to spend 45 on the 4th of July, I don't think we need to spend 12
If
on
we
the
take
Memorial Day.
if we take the cost of the members out, will it be the same number as it was before?
Be about 35.
Okay, so it's still at $5,000.
Excuse me?
Yeah, or 12,000 on concerts, 5,000 on movies, 6,000 on Uber programs.
I don't understand what we were talking about, the mummers. The mummers were free, so why
We
are
had
they
to
even?
blow it up.
Why- I don't know why
It
they-
showed up in the
Two lines
budget,
offset.
You
but
still-
but it's
you
offsetting
still-
expense, so we get rid of both.
Ron, you
What
still
number
have,
don't you like?
you still
You have
have
to
to include
budget
it as
for
a
it.
revenue and an expense,
Yeah,
because
let's take the numbers out, and if we happen to get them, like we did this year, so be it.
All right, so what's the new number or the old number that didn't include the mummers? That's too high.
30,000, I think.
30. So now what do you want it to be, 20?
No, 30.
Well, what's 30? It's still 30. It's
Alright.
not 45.
Well,
The
it
numbers are
says, I
free.
understand.
Well,
I
that's
don't
what I think you're
understand,
not taking
yeah,
into consideration.
it's
is
voodoo
revenue
economics
lines.
now.
I'm looking at the revenue line, yeah, okay, well, no, I agree with that, fine, the revenue line's at 21. But that doesn't, 21,000 is only covering the parade, we're not getting any donations for anything else to cover the other $55,000 worth of the program.
How much is the Memorial Day parade, and how much were you?
It was 9, and we're jumping it to 12, 33%.
I mean, if you wanna have these parades, you gotta pay these people in order to be in the parades.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
well, there's also overtime costs for the police
Yeah,
department,
there's-
all of that gets,
All right, we haven't even talked about revenue. So the only revenue we talked about so far is increasing the pool fees, which I have no problem with, as long as it's going up at a reasonable amount. Anybody in the mood to talk about taxes? I think we gotta look at it with a, go ahead.
No, we was talking.
We have, you know, inflation has hit everybody, inflation has hit the borough.
Just so I understand, for draft three, you'd like to see an increase in the pool revenue
Yes,
of approximately 8%.
sure.
But we're not touching the other individual lines except for removing the cost of the mummers.
Well,
You can't remove that.
I
if
think
it's
we have
already
to go
paid for.
through, let Randy go line through line to see what we can, where we can trim some stuff.
But I also enlarging that, I think not only just recreation, but I think the whole borough, all the different worksheets, how do we know what they've done in all their line items? We haven't even talked about that.
I agree.
That's a huge amount.
Engineering in the sewer went from $32,000 budget, but we spent $164,000 budget. I don't know, I'm just
So
trying
I
to
think
figure
your
out why
point is
it's
well
not
taken
jumping.
about
I agree.
enlarging, I agree,
We're not doing it
absolutely.
today. So we have
I don't know
to,
what the answer is.
we have to have a discussion on, we have to have discussion on, we have to at least consider if we're gonna do anything about a tax increase. Okay. So why don't we do a picture of this with a quarter point?
In general,
Yep.
if we're gonna have a tax increase, we damn well should do for every other area that we're nickel and diming the rec board and the swimming department and
Well, I think we
Well, it's
have.
also
we
the
I
have
parks
agree.
that
department, there's, I
No.
mean, there's, I'm just looking at numbers. I'm
Right.
not here to nickel and dime, I'm just going, this line item jumped
No, but you're-
66%, this line item jumped 40%.
No, I think your point is well taken, but I say I would expand it.
I did it on every
Right,
single sheet.
I agree with what you're saying,
Alright.
absolutely.
Good. So we're gonna do a quarter point modeling, which is $250.
Is our next meeting in finance?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you potentially wanna talk about an additional special meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we should. And I think you should go back and look at all the line items of all the budget and see where, hey, do we need that or don't we need that? We haven't even talked about it, and that's where all the money is.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of those line items, do any of those line items come down when we eliminate projects? So if we eliminated the one pump in Ole, does that reduce the engineering fees, does that reduce the, did that have a corresponding effect on other line items?
We already did that. We reduced that.
Right, so it would have been included in the bid, right? You know, what we think the cost would have been, right?
I think we should have another meeting, a special meeting first.
The next regularly scheduled meeting is November 7th, which would review October results.
That's finance.
Yeah, which is next Thursday.
Well, I think we should have another meeting first.
If we're gonna have another meeting and discuss it department by department, there will be more details available. So if we just get a piece of paper that says, here's what we spent, we're gonna go through all these items and have somebody explain it to us to figure out whether there's any place we can save. We can't just get numbers, we have to know what.
No, but at least,
Are all the lawn mowing services done by the borough, or are they
No.
done by high school
No.
kids?
no.
You're
No.
contracted.
So that maybe we should contract high school kids to cut grass.
Well, I don't know, no, we can't do that.
It's a union problem.
All
No.
right, okay.
No, no, you
Well,
can't
that's
do
a
that.
thought, so that's one thought.
It's the way it used to be back when I was in high school.
Well, it worked pretty well then.
Go ahead.
We at the end now, we're gonna do a special meeting?
We're gonna have to.
You need to pick a date because of advertising.
Good. Let's do it. It has to be at least a week from today, right?
No, you could advertise for as soon as Monday. Well, actually, no, what's today? Tuesday. You could advertise for as soon as Thursday. The ad would have to be in by, no, today at 12.
Thursday would be our latest.
Yeah.
This
Friday.
Thursday. That doesn't give us enough time to react to anything. Why don't we meet on the 6th? Wednesday the
We have
6th.
that meeting at 8.
Oh, that's right, we have that meeting
That meeting.
at 8. How'd that not seem?
Is that meeting affecting anybody besides you and Michelle?
Bill,
That meeting,
yeah.
That meeting.
so the rest of
It's
us.
a meeting with the Borough of Wilson to discuss LRTA taxes. Borough of Wilson, that's.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a
Word,
secret.
good old word, okay.
Is that on?
Wednesday the 6th at 8.
I can't do Tuesday.
How about Monday?
I could do Monday the 4th,
Somebody my dentist appointment again.
I think. Yeah, I could do Monday the 4th for, we're not doing past 9:30, but that's fine. 8 to 9:30, 8 to 9:15. Be optimistic.
Well,
When you get back to your office.
What's the date on that?
The Monday.
11/4,
Correct.
Monday. Okay. 8 o'clock? I have one close comment.
Go ahead.
I talked to Chip Bilger, this letter I spoke about in the water of 19% increase was emailed out to you last Thursday at 12:38. It covered you, Rossman, and Miller. So, somehow you had a problem with the sewer thing, maybe you're having a problem with emails, I don't know.
Well, no, he was physically mailing.
No, he emailed, he
No,
told me email.
the JMA was
Oh,
physically.
okay, but I'm just telling you, Chip emailed these last Thursday at 12:38. So I don't know why you don't have it. If you don't have it, then we have an issue with a technical problem. But it was mailed out, or emailed out.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.